Well, long time no see, everyone. A lot I haven't been on for a while from the Dusty Moose because, well, a lot has happened. I had a kid, moved to a house, so I'm actually working in my garage workshop. And I'm still going to carve soapstone and everything, but I'm thinking about changing up a little bit, more focusing on the day-to-day aspects of Viking life. And today, I'm going to be working on wood needles. Um, there was some wood needles were pretty common back then. It was just simple to make. If you had a knife, some wood, make a new wood needle. This would be either made in the field or given to kids to practice needlework and all that stuff. And from there, they would get either horn or bone needles, and then finally, metal needles. Metal needles were very expensive, so in order for someone to have one, you either had to come from a very rich family or you had to be skilled enough, so you needed to practice a lot with the wood and the bone and the horn. I do have some pig bone soaking right now. Just had some awesome pork for ham and bone and all that stuff, and then I decided to boil down the bone, or to say my wife boiled down the bone. So we got this awesome bone broth. And then the bones are mostly clean. They're just right now going through their last cleaning. With bone carving, pretty much for them I've seen is there's two different thoughts. You cook it to death, and then you bleach and clean it to death, and then your bone's ready after drying it. Or you scavenge for it, and it's just bleached and ready to go, which takes, the animal a couple years for it to be ready for harvesting. As you saw how I lit the soapstone lamp, I used a piece of wood called it's just a chunk of wood that you just cut off, and you put it in your fire long enough so the flame would take, and then you would light your lamp and all that stuff. Everyone did that back then. As for making the needle, you kind of want to go with the grain, kind of pop out the majority of the body, and then try to make a fine point, and then use a little bit of oil to help polish it down a little bit, and then harden it a little bit with the fire. A lot of the stuff would be taking place, more like right now. You would have a soapstone lamp, a lamp of some sort, or a very low fire, and you just work until it died out, or about to die out. And it's just supposed to be relaxing. It's the end of the day. Just the little putz work that you gotta do, because all the major work has to be done during the day when you can see things. Other than that, we're just gonna do some work, make some needles. The needles will be going into a future project where I'm going to try to make a rough tunic, because I have chainmail that I'm currently working on, and I want something underneath it that will protect me from the chainmail and add a little extra protection. Didn't have gambesons back then. That was more popularized back in 1066, and it was more European. The closest reference they would have of the Norsemen having gambesons would be referred to as a rough tunic. A rough tunic would be something that would be made of some sturdier cloth, not necessarily comfortable or padded, or they would layer up a couple worn tunics with this sturdy fabric, which would add that padding effect. There's not too much. It's just very loosely referenced. They don't really talk about it because it's poor people stuff, and not many people talk about the poor people stuff. But it is part of the day-to-day, and you need to, in order to live like a Viking, you gotta go with the day-to-day. So right now I'm just trying to get this down to a certain size, and then it's just a simple matter of just making a quick hole, and then sharpening it out using a little bit of this. Today I am using a little bit of coconut oil. Been always experimenting with different burnables and all that stuff, and like I said, the most extreme one is I will never use alcohol again. You all know that video. And I will highly discourage anyone from ever making an alcohol burning lamp. So I'm going to stop talking, and I'm just going to keep carving until I get to a certain point, and then we'll talk on where I'm at and how I'm going to do things. Right now, I'm just making simple, run-of-the-mill needles. Yeah, that one didn't turn out. Nice little shim though, but that's what all you learn. But as you can see, you just keep learning, keep whittling. Be careful when you do a back carve. Always make sure you know when you want to stop and avoid it as much as possible. Usually you want your wood needle at least over a couple inches, which the easiest way to do it is each segment of your finger is usually about an inch. So about here would be the cutoff. And as you notice, that's a nice little pile of wood shavings and kindling and all that stuff. Well, nothing went to waste. I would hand that over to the person of the house so they can start up the fire tomorrow morning. Especially, technically I would be using their firewood. But it is good to be back on with you guys. Hopefully, getting some more traction, I can get some more ideas and pointers. And do some more interesting things for you guys. There we go. Okay. So goal now is, let's see what we're working with. Used to be really good at making these, but it's also a little harder with the light. Used to making these during the day. I actually used to have a bunch of these, and then I lost my work peg. So it's getting to lost my favorite knife. Wasn't anything expensive or anything, just, you know, when you finally got your tools honed in to how you'd like them and how you can actually run your own tools. I don't even like that either. Oh, this is a close one. Let's go with this one for a moment. See how this works. Oh yeah, this is nice and easier. There we go. It's nice and long enough too. We're just trying to get the weak parts off. So this is definitely pointy enough. This is definitely wide enough. Score that down. Perfect. Just give it a little bit of a little rounder. There we go. Like that. Now take the tip. Well, hold on. This little, there we go. Good enough. Alright, we take the tip. This is the hard part. This is where you can really mess up your work quick. Yep, like that. So notice how that's split. I put too much pressure and plus this thing was a little too big. Can I save it? Kind of. What I can do, this was acceptable back then too, is what they'll do is they'll kind of sink the thread in, and then I just gotta thin this part here a little and that part there. And I'll even demonstrate with these needles once I get enough of them. Because as much as wicks are going and all that stuff, I don't like using paper wicks. I like the cloth wicks. They just seem to burn better and just have a better better lighting to it. So we're just going to quickly do that. I'm just going to scrape this tish here. There we go. This will help smooth everything out. Give it a little more protection. Okay. All we're trying to do is just add enough, kind of carbonize it just a little bit so it just makes it a little more pointy and that point lasts longer. What I would also recommend is if you just want to do your points again, is just dab on just a little more. And then you can just do that quick. There we go. Get some sandstone or get a fine grit stone and just rub it along there, and that will also sharpen it up pretty good. I don't have any of that stuff on me right now. Like I said, I'm still kind of in the middle transit and all that stuff. But what you can see is that's pretty pointy, and that will go through fabric. And then with this system here that's split, you sink your thread in between, kind of knot it if you want, just really light, and then that should just glide right on through. Actually, this part is a little thick. I can just trim that down quick. Oop. The biggest thing you're trying to do is avoid catches. Any place that can catch, that's going to catch on your fabric, and that won't go through nicely. You're just trying to be able to ease it through and move it around. Slide your fingers through it. And if you feel a jagged bump area like that, like this one right here, just trim it down nice and easy. Oof. And just be very careful. You are working with sharp knives and very dim lights. There we go. That's it. Okay. Well, at least that one's mostly done. Not to the rate that I prefer them, but it is done at least. Alright. Well, guess what? That shim looks pretty good. Let's work on the shim for a little bit. See what I can make out of it. Especially, I charred this part out good. This will be a nice, definitely after I'm done with it, 2-inch needle. This will be definitely more of a workhorse one, which is good. This one will be, I need good working ones. I'm hoping my bone is ready for tomorrow. We're going to find out together. Eventually I want to get enough people where I can do this live so people can ask me questions. I am a wealth of Viking. I put Viking in quotations. Source of information. Been working as one for long enough at the Renaissance Festival. Where we kind of have a thing about bringing the realism and fantasy together. Do a few of us have a doctorate there? Yeah. Not me personally, but we always check in with them. And so far we've been pretty good. Now, the other thing I could have done, and it was roughly a good size for, is a nail bend needle. An nail bend needle is typically rounder. It's not made for poking holes through. In fact, it's made for making knots. Because nail bend is a special technique. It's close to crocheting, but instead of making loops and all that stuff, you're making knots. And with those knots, you get a special advantage of, oh, you have a hole. It's easier to stitch it together or darn it. And then you can fix your stuff quicker. It just takes longer to make. And typically, it's something that you use the edge loom pieces for. The stuff that you normally wouldn't have anything for because it was already made into fabric. Usually the tips are just a little easier to make. So usually for the needles, make the main body and then try to get the edge made. And then it's just easy matter just to make that tip. And then you're just trying to flush everything before you really do the hard work of varnishing it and trying to make it as smooth and as solid as possible. Oops. All right. Yeah, it's way too thin. Well, like I said, that's why you give yourself some extra work room. All right. Okay, there we go. Now, you make a small hole here. You just gotta work that hole a little bit. Okay. Flip to the other side. Kind of have an idea where that hole is. And kind of work it there. Notice how I'm giving myself a little extra material and all that stuff to work with. Because if the better you make your hole, the easier will be the thread and stitch. Generally, you want a very fine point tip blade. There we go. And you just work that hole a little bit. Then you should be, yep, as you can see, that hole, yep. That's what you want. I like to work that hole just a little bit more. This is a very hands-on craft. The better you make your needles, the less of them you have to make. Then we're just gonna trim. Try to get something like kind of like that. Be surprised how thin you can make these. There we go. Like I said, the thinner you make it, the less fabric you're going to have to push through in order to get the needle through. Your fabric will shut for... Your needles can be surprisingly pretty big, and your fabric will still shut. That's not to say you want to make a giant needle. Quite the opposite. Smaller the better. You just need it long enough so you can actually work with it, and you can actually use it more than a few times. By having a needle like this, where it is kind of longer, you can rework that tip over and over again, and it will actually give you some actual work out of it before you have to really switch over and use different needles. Now we're just in the point of just finishing it, cleaning it up. Okay. So you can see it's still a little thick here. We're just going to work on that just slightly. Like I said, you won't be able to eliminate all the thickness, nor should you. That thickness is what gives the needle kind of its stability. But what we're trying to do is anytime there is thickness, just smoothing it out. Just trying to smooth it. I'm not getting rid of it completely, just smoothing it out. So that way, got something you can actually work with. Then you just kind of run your fingers lightly, very lightly. Don't want to give yourself splinters. But because you're working with doing some fine woodworking and all that stuff, splinters are a little less of a issue or a hazard compared to more raw woodworking. There we go. Alright. Now, just take a little bit of, we'll just dip it in. Yeah, we're getting close. That's okay. We're about done. There we go. There we go. You see how just smooth. Now, it's pretty pointy, but let's harden it so that way we can actually get some work out of it. Just enough to work hard in. There we go. Alright, there we go. Complete needle. You got yourself the eye hole right there. Whoop. There we go, the eye hole, which that's important. That'll feed your thread. I personally like to do a just a half. Feed your thread through, lay it in half, and then that way when you stitch it, all you do is a loop on the end and a loop at the other end, and you have fabric that will actually stay in place pretty easy. There's other stitches and all that stuff, but right now we're focusing on the really rough, quick, what you would do out in the field stitches. We are not by any means tailors, seamstresses, or anything like that. What we're trying to do is, well, live a Viking life. So I got 2 needles to work with here. Obviously this one is quite superior. And this one will slide through a lot of fabric easy. I've also been experimenting with different woods and all that stuff. You don't know what you're gonna get. I had to get my hands on this weird punky wood. I want to see how that cuts. I just literally chipped off pieces and all that stuff. Here we go. Let's use this one. See if I can get something out of it. Not sure if I'm going to get anything out of it, but or if it'll cut nice. It cuts. It is solid wood. Let's get a working piece. Let's see if we'll cut this way. There we go. Okay. Like I said, there's a lot of prep work you would do during the day. So you have these nice small pieces to work with. You did not want to split wood in the dark. I was about to do that, and I realized how bad of an idea that was. How bad of an idea it is still. That's just not safe enough. Oh, 2 little needles is okay for now. Used to be able to make a lot more. Lost my touch, but that's what happens when life gets at you. Get out of practice a little bit. I'll be more than happy to show you more stuff later. Like I said, I'm going to be messing around with some bone soon, and we'll be posting that video up. And if you have any questions or want me to experiment with different stuff, feel free to message. Pretty accessible. Other than that, I think I'm just going to call it. I'm just going to sit and enjoy this lamp.